Good afternoon and welcome to NEHRA Newsmakers. My name is Tracy Burns. I'm the CEO of the Northeast HR Association. Welcome back. I'm excited to have Mike Dunford here today with us. He's the former head of HR for Covidien Medtronics, and he's here this afternoon to talk to us about hiring veterans. So welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
I'd like to start by just having you tell the audience a little bit about your background and then how you became an advocate for veterans.
Sure. My dad was a Marine, served in 1950 in Korea. Uncles were all in the military, so I kind of grew up in a family of service. And when I graduated from college, I joined the Marine Corps, like so many of them, and ended up spending the next 21 years affiliated with the Marine Corps, 7 years on active duty, the rest in the reserves. And while I was developing my HR career, I still had very strong ties and connections to both veterans and the military. And so they've been a part of my life for decades now. And it was very easy for me to call myself a veterans advocate because I care so much and passionately about helping the veterans that are transitioning today. So it was pretty easy given my background.
Great. I know that you're involved with an organization called Edge for Vets. Tell us a little bit more about them and how you got involved with them.
Sure. Edge for Vets is a program that was founded by a guy named Tom Murphy down at Fordham University. A few years back, he had military veterans who were coming to Fordham as students and transitioning to be college students from the military. And he saw this opportunity to kind of help them in that transition. So he relied on a pretty basic resiliency model, created a program to help those veterans assimilate and do that transition. I think when he did that, he saw this opportunity to create a program to help veterans transition to employment. So he did a couple of programs in New York. I got introduced to him through members of my network up here in Massachusetts. We hit it off right away and agreed to bring the program to Massachusetts. It really is focused on helping veterans do that translation piece to make them more job ready. A lot of times veterans will show up at job fairs and hand off a resume, but they really haven't prepared their pitch. They haven't prepared what they're going to say to those interview questions. And Edge for Vets fills that gap that I saw, being somebody in HR for so many years. It's not just about the resume. It's about how you present yourself in that first interview to really be competitive. And Edge for Vets really helps them do that.
That's great. So I recently also noticed that you published or posted something on LinkedIn. It was a study that was done by Syracuse University. I think it's the Veterans and Military Families out of Syracuse, titled Work After Service. I thought it was a great piece. I know they're doing a series and it really focused on sort of the long-term, a long-range view, not just getting military veterans into an organization, but what's that transition process, taking more of a long-term view versus just getting them in there. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of what you're seeing in the marketplace and what organizations are doing good work in that space?
Sure. It's no different with the military veterans than it is with any pool of talent that we recruit. You recruit people, you develop them, and you want to retain them. It's this retention piece for the military veteran that I think is a little bit more unique. They're coming from such a different culture in some cases that they really need a higher touch, if you will, if you're going to retain them. Some of the folks that have come into positions have not had the success to stay that long because of that difference in culture, if you will. And so a lot of companies, EMC is one that comes to mind, does a great job. State Street has a program as well where they have employee resource groups focused on veterans. And the idea is that once you go through the efforts, and it is some effort, to hire veterans and bring them into these opportunities, to really put your arms around them as they come in and as they move through the organization and through their career, and connect them with other veterans who have gone before them so that they can play this mentor role, if you will, and really help them better assimilate early on so that after 12 or 18 months, they've been integrated into the organization and their chance for successfully staying is much higher.
Yeah, absolutely. What other resources are out there? I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes from an employment standpoint to figure out what resources are out there. But for veterans, what other resources other than Edge for Vets have you seen that seem to be really supporting that community?
Yeah, the state has the Veterans Employment and Training Services Group. They received funding from the Department of Labor, and so the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, has one-stop career centers across the state. And those are available to the veterans to come in. It helps with resume preparation, some interview preparation, some of the things that are more typical that you would see, as opposed to the deep dive that an Edge for Vets might provide. There's also a program called 4-Block, which some of the financial institutions sponsor. And that's a different curriculum. It's kind of almost a full year. It's weeks at a time where the veteran comes into the organization's leadership participates actively. And I've heard very good things about 4-Block. So, those are a few. I think there's a lot of people in the space that want to help. I think the challenge is finding the veterans. And that's one of the things that we've really focused on with Edge for Vets in the past year. I've become deeply networked in that space in Massachusetts, so I could find where they were. So when we had a workshop, we could invite them to come. And it's evidenced, the workshop we're offering on April 1st at Bunker Hill Community College, we have over 60 veterans already registered. Wow. And the typical number for a workshop is 25 to 35. So this is a significant achievement for us because we're reaching the veterans now. We've also started this partnership with the community colleges, which has been great.
That's wonderful. And of course, you're doing programming with us, which you started back at the conference in the fall, which got rave reviews when you did the session with the panelists. And I know we have 2 coming up. Can you tell us what the focus of those programs are and what you want HR professionals to get out of those?
Sure. If you read the Syracuse literature, and they're kind of the front runner on the research side of employing veterans, they talk about it's really this 2-pronged approach. You have to first get the veterans ready, but then you also have to get the employers ready. And so what you supported back in October, which was great, was the idea of educating the HR and line manager folks who may not have served, who may not understand the intricacies of serving, the skills that get developed, and what veterans can really bring to the table. That workshop kind of addressed that. So the idea is we want the HR folks and line managers to understand that there's this ready force of labor of people who are ready to go to work and take your opportunities, and they already have skills and experiences that you can leverage as an employer. And so the discussion that we have in the workshop that's planned for next week is a panel discussion with veterans who have actually transitioned. And they'll talk in detail about the skills and experiences and values that they developed in the military and how those prepared them and helped them be successful in their civilian occupation. And it's pretty compelling when you hear them talk. And if you're not familiar with that world, it's you can see the folks' eyes open in the audience and they realize, you know what? I think we're missing this talent group that we can go after, and they can help us. And that's really the message that we want to drive. That's
great. And I know we have the D&I Gala coming up at the end of April, and I had the chance to speak to Noah Galloway, who's our keynote this year, who's a vet and a double amputee from a 2005 deployment he had in Iraq, where he got severely wounded. And he talks about exactly that, and both the transferable skills, some of the myths around, how veterans are when they come back, and some of the things that he had to overcome that were both physical and mental. Yeah. So it was really interesting for me just to hear about, get a little bit of a preview about what he'll talk about at the gala. But exactly to your point, it's, things around leadership and work ethic and really overcoming both the physical and mental challenges that, frankly, most of us aren't faced with, right. But that the veterans are.
Right.
So it's fantastic. So thank you again for both for your time today, but also for all the programming that you're doing for NEHRA, but also for the community at large. I know the veterans, I'm sure the associations that you're involved in greatly appreciate it. I'm sure that all the veterans that you touch, and especially being able to get 60 at the workshop next week, that's wonderful. So congratulations on that. Thank you all again for joining us for this edition of NEHRA Newsmakers. Next month, we'll be talking about diversity again, focused on employee resource groups. So we hope you will join us then. In the meantime, please check out NEHRA.com for the latest on what we're doing in programming in all other areas.